So take a moment and copy down these 6 questions. So remember, whenever you're asked an inverse question, an inverse is asking you for the angle. Inverse means what angle? I'm looking for an answer that is an angle. An angle in radians. What angle in radians has that answer? That's what I'm asking you. Okay, so I got it written on the board back here. If it is a cosine, a secant, or a cotangent, we're in quadrants 1 or 2. If it's a sine, a cosecant, or a tangent, we're in quadrants 1 and 4. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight. If it's in quadrants 1 and 2, I'm going to go ahead and highlight them now. I'm going to highlight them green. So quadrants 1 or 2 would be this one, and this one. All of those, I'm looking in quadrants 1 and 2. Okay. The other 3, I'm going to highlight purple. Those are in quadrants 1 or 4. So that's really important that you know where we're looking. Okay. So let's start off with the first one in this column here. This is asking you what angle has a sine of negative root 3 over 2. Again, I'm only looking here. So what angle has a sine of negative root 3 over 2? What'd you say? It is negative pi over 3. So on your unit circle, remember it's 5 pi, but we don't use 5 pi. When we're talking about an inverse, let me go ahead and switch these. When talking about an inverse, the angles that I'm using are, this would be a negative pi over 6. This would be negative pi over 4, negative pi over 3, negative pi over 2. And all I did, if you can't tell, was I just reflected it. I took this angle and reflected it here. I took this angle, reflected it here. And I took this angle and reflected it here. All right. All right, so the answer would be negative pi over 3. That is correct. That is the answer to the first one. All right, the next one is asking you what angle What angle has a cosine of -1/2? Okay. Well, that's the easy one because I'm looking in these two quadrants. This is where I'm looking at. Quadrants 1 and 2. So I can use any of these answers. Any of these angles I can use. I don't have to flip them or anything. Any of the angles you see highlighted in green. So which one of those angles that you see highlighted in green has a cosine of -1/2? Go ahead, look at your unit circle. Find the angle that has a cosine of -1/2. Cosine -1/2. So Aisha, which one would you pick? What angle has a cosine of -1/2? 120, yep. And 120 in radians would be what? Because everything is in radians. 2 pi over 3. That's the answer I'm looking for. All right, now we're down to cotangent. Cotangent and tangent, those are a little tricky, all right, because you have to divide to get your answer. So cotangent is x divided by y, okay. Now it's positive. First of all, cotangent is in 1 or 2. So I'm looking for, again, one of these answers that you see highlighted in green. But because it's a positive one, I know I'm over here. Which one of these three angles, pi over 3, pi over 4, or pi over 6, which one has a cotangent of positive 1? Pi over 4. All right, let me pause right there. Any questions about the first three? All right, secant is the sister of who? Who's secant's sister? Cosine. So I'm going to rewrite this as the inverse cosine of -1/2. All right, I think it's easier if it is a secant or cosecant to flip it. And we actually already answered that question. This is the same question. These are asking the exact same question. If I ask you the inverse cosine of -1/2, that's the same thing as the inverse secant of -2. So the answer is 2 pi over 3. Aisha already gave us that answer, so we're good. All right, cosecant is the sister to sine. Now, I know that this is going to flip to be √3 over 2, okay? I already know that. That's what I'm looking for. If you don't know it, I'm going to show you how you would figure that out. You would take this answer and you would flip it, first of all, because that's how you figure out the sine. Sine is always the opposite of cosecant. But we can't leave a root in the denominator, so I would multiply only by √3. And I would get 3√3 over 2 times 3. And this would cancel. And I would have the square root of 3 over 2. Now, if you don't need to do this, if you're like me and you can look at it and tell, you do not have to do this. You could just go straight here. But if you're not sure, go ahead and do it. So what angle has an inverse sine of positive square root of 3 over 2? What'd you say, Kamaya? Pi over 3. Excuse me. Pi over 3. All right, now we're down to the last one. Again, this is kind of hard because you have to divide. How do you find tangent? Is tangent x over y or y over x? Y over x. Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's reason through this a little bit. So first of all, it's tangent. So because it's tangent, I know that I'm looking in quadrants 1 or 4. So I'm not looking here and I'm not looking here. Now, it's a negative. So that means I'm also not looking where. What other quadrant can I cross out? If it's negative, it's not in 1. So now I have narrowed it down. It has to be in quadrant 4. Okay. Now, I know that it's not this one. How do I know it's not this? What is going to be the tangent and cotangent of negative pi over 4? So it's not this. So now we're down to a 50-50 shot. It's either negative pi over 6 or negative pi over 3. Now, I can look at it. I can tell which one it is. All right. But if you cannot, we just need to do keep, change, flip. So which one do you want to test? Pick one that you want to test. Do you want to test the negative pi over 6 or negative pi over 3? Raise your hand if you want to do negative pi over 6. Who wants to do negative pi over 3? All right, let's do negative pi over 3. So if I do negative pi over 3, remember, tangent is y divided by x. So this is x and this is y. All right, so if I figure out the tangent of negative pi over 3, that means I'm going to take my y value and divide it by x, right? And how do we divide fractions? Keep, change, flip. So I'm going to keep this, change, and flip. This is going to go away, and I'm left with negative root 3. Negative root 3 is not the same as negative root 3 over 3. So now I can also cross out this as an answer. I'm only down to one possibility. What does it have to be? There's only one left. Negative pi over 6. All right, let me go ahead and zoom out. I know that's a lot. The more you work with it, the easier it will become. But you have to practice. You got to practice. So I'm going to put up the next slide. I want you to copy it down and give yourself 5 minutes. And I'm going to help you out that 2 of these answers are D and E. I'm going to write that up here. 2 answers are D and E. So take a few minutes, take 5 minutes. See if you can go through and answer those 6 questions. And D and E is going to pop up twice. Just type the best. Don't leave any of them blank. Take a guess. Just guess on all of them. Feel free to ask the neighbor what they think. All right, let's see how we did. All right, so for the first one, who is the sister to cosecant? Who's cosecant sister? Sine. Okay. Now, we also know in order to find cosecant or sine, you have to flip the sister. So this is really a -1 over 1. What do you get when you flip it and it becomes 1 over -1? What is 1 divided by -1? Not a trick question, I promise you. -1. So what angle has a sine value of -1? Remember, we're looking in quadrants 1 and 4. So we're looking here. Where is sine -1? What did you say, Kamaya? -5/2. Because remember, we can't use these. We got to rewrite these. This is going to be -π/6, -π/4, and -π/3 and -π/2. So the answer I'm looking for the first one would be -π/2. All right, the second one, this is kind of tricky. Where is tangent undefined? π/2 and what else? Is actually undefined here and here. Both of these are undefined. But I want you to look here closely at this board. Do you notice that I did not put an equal sign? This is the only one that it cannot equal these two. Okay? So it's D and E. It's undefined. You can say D and E or undefined, same thing. Oh, I lied. There's 3 D and E. There's 3. Did I scare you? I'm sorry. My bad. I forgot about this one. All right. What about, where is cosine 4? Is cosine ever 4? That's D and E. Is sine ever negative root 2? No, it's negative root 2 over 2, but it's not just a negative root 2, so that's also D and E. So my bad, we have 3 D and E's. All right, again, when you flip this, it's going to become cosine. And what it's going to end up becoming is a negative root 3 over 2. So I'm not going to show the work because we already did before. Where is cosine negative root 3 over 2? What angle has a cosine of negative square root of 3 over 2? What you think, Kimberly? 5 pi over 6. All right, and then again, now these are the hard ones, okay? These are the hard ones. The more you do it, the easier it'll become. But to find cotangent is x divided by y, right? Okay, let's start there. Cotangent is quadrants 1 or 2. All right, so that tells me that I'm not looking in 3 or 4. Also, because it's a negative, what else am I going to cross out? 1 or 2? Which one am I crossing out? 1 or 2 because it's negative? Who says I'm crossing out 1? Who says I'm crossing out 2? Who doesn't know? All right, we're crossing out 1. So now, again, just like before, we're down to 3 possible answers. One of these I can automatically cross out. And that's 3 pi over 4 because that would be negative 1. So it's not that. So again, I'm down to a 50-50 chance. So let's pick one of those to test it. Who wants to test 2 pi over 3? Who wants to test 5 pi over 6? All right, let's test 5 pi over 6. So let's figure out what the cotangent of 5 pi over 6 is. The cotangent of 5 pi over 6. We're trying to see if that gives us negative root 3 over 3. So cotangent is going to be x divided by y, right? Now go ahead, do your keep, change, flip. Keep, change, flip. All right. The only way it's going to be a negative root 3 over 3 is if we end up with a root 3 in the bottom. Will I have a root 3 in the bottom after I cancel out the 2's? Where is my root 3 going to be? It's at the top. So I end up with negative root 3. So my answer is not, Aisha, is not 5 pi over 6. That's not my answer. Okay? It's not 5 pi over 6. So I can cross that one out too. So I only got one possibility, which is what? 2 pi over 3. That would be your answer. That's how you have to approach it. All right. Let's go ahead, copy down these 3. Let's do a few composite functions. So tomorrow we're going to start 7-3. You're going to get your study guide on Friday. And we have our test next week. I know, right? Huh? Yep, 2 more times. 2 more tests, and then after that, no more.
Let me go ahead and chop it. Let me fix my house. I already have all of that. I texted her that. She was like, what's going on with your business? And I forgot to text her. I don't text her back. I really don't need it. You know? And just I don't want to do it.
So I think it's easiest to go from the inside out. So a composite is just two different questions. So let's start off by answering this question right here. What is the cosine of negative pi over 6? Well, negative pi over 6 on our unit circle is the same as 11 pi over 6. And the cosine is positive root 3 over 2. So the cosine of negative pi over 6 is positive root 3 over 2. Now we're going to answer the inverse. Now, when I'm talking about an inverse, though, I'm only looking in quadrants 1 or 2. So going back to quadrants 1 or 2, what angle has a cosine of positive root 3 over 2? What angle am I looking at? Positive pi over 6. That would be my final answer. All right, take a minute and try to do number 2 by yourself. Aisha, you okay, Aisha? You might need to stand up. You tired. I understand, me too. Number 3 is what? Oh, 3 pi over 2. All right, so what did you get for your answer for number 2? Pi over 4. You're right. The sine of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2. And the angle that has a sine value of root 2 over 2 in quadrant 1 or 4 is pi over 4. All right. Number 3. The sine of 3 pi over 2 is undefined. And what angle in quadrants 1 or 4 has an undefined answer? And that would be D and E. Or you could say undefined. All right. I think we only got 4 more. They should go pretty fast. Go ahead and copy them down. And then we'll end there. And tomorrow we're going to start 7.3. So take a minute, copy these 4 down, and then we'll end there for today. So whenever we start with an inverse, all right, so if you go back and look at these, notice how all of these, we started with just finding the value. We didn't start with an inverse. None of these started with an inverse. Does everybody see that? We did not start with an inverse. Okay, so whenever we start with an inverse, the first thing you need to know is that when you're doing the inverse, all right, you have a domain and range. Sine, cosecant, cosine, and secant. You cannot take the inverse of numbers less than -1 or greater than +1. That's what you need to remember. And for tangent and cotangent, you can do any number. Oh, so this one I actually wrote backwards. Let me fix that one. This should be the inverse sine. Well, actually, I'm going to change it to... No, yeah. It should be the inverse sine, and then it should be a sine, not an inverse sine on the inside. All right, so let's look at these two. The first thing you're going to ask yourself before you proceed, okay, is this number within my range? Yes or no? It is. All right, so we can keep going. What angle has a cosine of +1? What angle has a cosine of +1? And that's 0. 0 radians. So what is the secant of 0? Well, if the cosine of 0 is 1, the secant of 0 is also 1. So my final answer is 1. All right. Can you take the cosine of 2.5? Is 2.5 in between this range? No. So that's D and E. So this whole question, we're going to shut it down. We can't do anything with that. 2.5 is too high. The answer does not exist. Now, go ahead and write this in. If it said the tangent, inverse tangent, we could do that. And that answer, we couldn't finish it. But we would have to stop it here at the tangent of 4. Now, we would have to use a calculator to find the tangent of 4, and since we're not using a calculator, we would stop right there. So that's okay. Anyway, let's move over here. Okay. So this is where it gets tricky. So remember, sine is in between -pi/2 and +pi/2. All right, so here's the tricky part. I don't know if we all can answer this because this is a fraction. All right, fractions are not our friend. It's not your fault. It was COVID time when you were probably learning fractions. Okay, so is 1/8, is that in between -1/2 and +1/2? Who says yes? Who says no? All right, let me go about it a different way because only about half of you know that answer. So what you could also do is rewrite this with the denominator of 8. What do I have to multiply this by to get to a denominator of 8? 4. So I'm going to rewrite my range as -4pi/8 and +4pi/8. So maybe this is a little easier. If I ask you if 1 is in between -4 and 4, I think you would probably know that it is. So my answer would be pi/8 because it's in between that range. All right, what is the sine of pi? And the reason we had to do that is because this is not on my unit circle, so I had to go about it a different way. All right, last one. What's the sine of pi? 0. What angle has a sine of 0? Now remember, has an inverse sign of 0. Now remember, pi is over here. We can't use that. So I got to look over here. What angle in 1 or 4 has a sign of 0? 0. So your answer would be 0. Okay, y'all. So that's the end of 7.2. Tomorrow we're going to start 7.3.